So I am delighted to welcome the Group CEO of Art Network, Simon Foster. How are you today?
Hi, Dan. I'm very good, thank you. Delighted to be here.
I had a quick check of the calendar, and it's almost 2 years to the day. I think it was the 11th of May that the original announcement was put out that Art Network had been born. At the time, you suggested that you wanted to build the future of networking and a next level event business, and that you wanted to take the next step in connecting and supporting communities and building business networks. 2 years on, how have you been getting on doing that?
That's a great question. That's good research. That headline, that anniversary passed me by a bit, actually. We announced the partnership with EagleTree 2 years ago. Obviously, at that time, we didn't have a business. But we announced that we would be wanting to build the businesses. In that respect, I guess we've done well because from August that year, from August 2021, we then bought a business a quarter, I should say, 6 quarters in a row. So I'm delighted that we now have a business. We have something to actually work with and try and do that. And I'm delighted with the format that's taken. I often refer to people when I talk about the claims about inventing the future of networking and what have you. It does sound very grand, but actually it's genuine in terms of what we wanted to do. Are we there yet? Which I guess was the point of your question. No. Are we making good progress? Yes, I'd like to think we are. We're, the businesses that are part of the Art Network have the characteristics that I was looking for and what we wanted to do. But they also, we have teams and expertise within the business that are really thinking about what that phrase means and what we can do. So, we have a business where we didn't have that 2 years ago. Yeah. We have that vision in place. We have a strong leadership team, an excellent leadership team that are very focused on the same aim. So, now we've got to make that happen.
Sure. No, because it's interesting, because obviously when, you launch a business, you have to, whatever shape, size, whatever industry, you release statements, you tell people what you're planning on doing with it. But as you know, it's not always a straight line to where you think you're going to get to. And things, come in outside of your control that sort of knock you off path. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, but things change. But what you're saying is broadly on track to deliver against the objectives and the type of business that you're looking to fulfill.
Yeah, we're very much on track in terms of that. I'm not sure that we've yet, touch wood, had anything that's knocked us off track. But what's been interesting is, it's interesting. You say when you start a business there, I often say I have a huge admiration for people who are what I would call real entrepreneurs in this industry. People who start something from fresh, start something without anything. ARC it wasn't really a blank piece of paper. Yes, it was in my head when we started it, and in that of EagleTree as well. But actually, obviously, what we've taken by taking 6 businesses, we've got businesses that have long-established credentials. AgriConnect has a brand that's nearly 180 years old in Farmer's Guardian. So they're well established in what they do and where they are. So I don't feel that we've started something from new. We're more taking the building blocks that we had and putting them together. And I think when I think about what we meant by that phrase of reinventing the future of networking, I often talk about our business not being an events business. Yes. Don't get me wrong. We run events, and events are going to be the core of what we do in terms of the experience. And I am a huge believer in live media, as I'm sure you would expect me to say.
Sure.
But I say we're more about a business of connecting people. That's what we do. That's in the essence what all events do. We connect people and help them do business by giving them information, connections, environments, whatever, to help them do business. And that's what we do. And I think what's the better phrase we often use is we talk about connecting people however, whenever, and on whatever platform they want. Because for me, that's the key. And what used to bug me was the idea in the past, and I have to say this was pre-COVID as well. This isn't a COVID plan, although COVID did coincide with when we started. The plan was really to, I used to be bugged when people would say, well, look, we can't help you connect unless you buy a booth at the stand, at the show. Yeah. We can't put you on this website. We can't do other things. And I always thought that was a strange thing that we should do. So what I'm very much more focused on is the business that we have are not just about events. They have strong content propositions on various formats. They have a strong ability to drive some form of engaged or subscribed or membership model within the communities and the ecosystems that they serve. And they offer a variety of models, several different events models, but also, digital advertising, marketing as a service, syndicated content, all of those different things. And that's because I believe that networking is about using all of those tools, not only to provide value for people to connect, for buyers and sellers to connect, by informing them and doing that, but also it allows us to understand much more about what people are doing and provide much more appropriate, bespoke, if you want to call it that, experiences for those people. And I think that's the key, because there was a big thing that struck me when I finished at Comexposium and before I started ARC. I was at the UFI CEO Summit in Italy. The big part of what we were talking about there, I was lucky enough to be chairing that meeting, was about how the industry was suffering from poor NPS scores. And I know a lot of people will understand that, but the industry as exhibitions, despite being one of the most favoured medium, was still, people were saying, well, the NPS is not good. And there's a whole range of things about that to do with lack of ROI, lack of focus, lack of bespoke experience. I personally felt a large degree of that was due to the fact that, and me included in this, had been running exhibitions where we've been investing in running the event, dressing the event, preparing the event, rebooking the event and selling them and getting on that, as opposed to thinking about why people were connecting, what they wanted to do, how we wanted to drive that. And so that's quite a long answer, but that's kind of what I think about. It's that idea of, we are an event business, but I don't want us to think like an event business. I want us to think like we are just about connecting people.
Yeah.
And that's what all the businesses that we have, they all have the characteristics to do that in varying degrees. And what we're trying to do is then bring them together and exchange best practice between each of them as to how best to develop that omni-channel, multi-channel, whatever you want to call it, approach.
Sure. Thank you. And I know that the model, correct me if I'm wrong, originally was to buy into companies, and you mentioned some of them already, but also the likes of Incisive as well, and use the group experience, scale, I guess, common platforms to generate growth. Is that how the model's actually been working, or has it been more a case of 100% acquisitions?
Yes, that's the objective. And yes, it is working, actually. Yeah. One acquisition a quarter for 6 quarters is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that they weren't the only 6 acquisitions we talked to during that time. So you can imagine we were busy.
Yeah.
I think we acquired a business called LRP, a Florida-based business, in October last year. And that gave us that effectively doubled our scale in terms of revenue and business, but also gave us 2 very strong sectors in HR and education, primarily in the US. And what that was really a turning point for us, because, as you say, we are about driving scale and building the business. That's not unique. There are dozens of businesses in our industries that have done that, so I don't claim that. But actually, when we did the LRP acquisition, that gave us the real scale we wanted, and there was a pivot. Oh, I hate that term. Sorry. There was a change in our.
I'll cut it out. I'll cut it out.
You don't have to cut it out. I love saying that. I don't like it. We stopped being, I say we were probably or certainly me personally, 80% focused on acquisitions at that time and 20% on building the strategy and driving that. That said, the leaders that we had coming in the business in the UK particularly were already starting to execute the strategy. I think at that point we've switched the balance, as I say, and now we are very focused on really doing the things that you pointed out there, is working across the businesses. I'm sure you've seen this. I talk a lot about a network approach, which is not necessarily the best word, but the idea of that is we want our companies, or more importantly, our brands, because that's what we are, our team brands, focused on what they do for their customers, immersed in their markets, immersed in their segments, and really thinking about how we can continue to help people drive value. So what we don't do is we don't plug everybody into a Borg and say, right, you're all going to have to operate on this finance system, do sales this way, do marketing this way. Within the business, as I say, we have different centres of excellence, and we're already seeing cross-fertilizations for them. So the Incisive business that we had is now under Jonathan Whiteley, who's the CEO there, who was of Incisive, is now running the European businesses in ARC. And the team there that had done the digital transformation very successfully in Incisive are now overlooking AgriConnect and the other European businesses like Bridge2Food and looking how they can take that expertise and build that into there. Interestingly, we're also then putting more large-scale event experience into the Incisive part of the business. So trying to take those centres of excellence and driving them. But at the same time, also driving cores of technology and sharing those things. So yes, it's starting to work, but I'm, like everybody, I'm a bit impatient. I'd love it to be a bit quicker, but we're definitely seeing the opportunity to grow.
You have held senior positions at the likes of UBM and Comexposium. How does the business differ from those previous businesses?
Yeah, I'm smiling because I get into trouble whenever I say these in interviews, and my former colleagues ring me up and go, "What did you say that for? Why is that different?" So, the key difference is what I talked about is certainly in UBM, which I can talk about because now it's obviously part of Informa and has moved on.
Sure.
We were very successful at bringing people into the business and getting, sharing those, but not just sharing best practice, but having one way of selling, doing a sales program that worked across the world, making sure everything looked the same, making sure we operated well and doing economies of scale. And was a very valid and very positive thing. I think occasionally what that did sometimes was lose the entrepreneurialism and the focus of teams in the business. Also, there was very much a focus on events and less on the content bits. When I was in UBM, we shut a lot of magazines, and I understand, I know why we did that, and I know what we wanted to do because financially they weren't working. But I think, in essence, with hindsight, we began to realise that we'd a bit thrown the baby out with the bathwater, in so much as, yes, the model of printed media wasn't working, but the need of content and those other interactions was there. So, I think Comexposium and UBM Informa are fantastic businesses, and I have a huge amount of admiration for them. I think the bits we're just trying to do is take the best bits out of them. Where they've got businesses that focus on the customer, we want to overemphasize that and really drive that. Yes, we do want to bring content and those other media in, but Informa certainly do a very good job of that, probably more so than UBM did. And Comexposium has that and has been developing that and growing that. But I think we're trying to do that from the start rather than reinvent that going forward. And I think that's really the key difference there is what we're trying to do.
And it's interesting. So what you're saying is previously you might look at a publication, look at its P&L. It's either making money, not making money. You look at an event, look at the P&L, it's making money or throwing off cash. You might, my word, stitch that because financially it's not performing in isolation. But actually now what we're doing is looking at everything that makes up the serving of that community. Not necessarily one piece is making this amount of money and that's not profitable. Was that sort of the way that you're looking at it?
Yeah. That's a great summary. And I think, I think other people have realised that. And we should acknowledge also, when those magazines were being closed and we weren't thinking about the other ways of doing it, the ability to move from traditional media into digital was restricted because the technology wasn't there, the bandwidth wasn't there. There were lots of things we didn't know, and customers didn't understand it. Right? We didn't know where we were. So that complexity has become even more. And whether you call that event technology or whether you just call that media technology or whatever, the ability for us to do more and understand more about our data, about our customers, and interact that with the content's become much more important. So, yes, other companies can see this and do that. I think that there's more things that have changed than just the finances. But you're right. We're not just taking that blanket view.
Sure.
I think there are other companies that are doing that. If you look at Questex in the US, Questex is a wonderful business. Very much got a mix like we have, or like we're aspiring to have. And it's interesting because we looked at Questex before at the same time as MidOcean with Paul were looking at it and what have you. And I know a lot of people discounted the fact that it had traditional magazines, albeit they're moving to digital and the digital elements versus the events they have. And of course, Paul was able to see beyond that and has very much now proven that they've got the right balance because they do that as well. So I think and other companies are trying to do that as well, especially post-COVID. But so I think that whole model is I don't know whether that's going to become the future, because lots of other people in the industry are not doing that. They're going back to where they were. But I think that is the key to it. And as I say, I don't think we're that unique.
Sure. Talk to me about the role of data. Give us a flavour of what ARC are doing with regards to data and how they see data as central to the conversation.
It's really funny. I don't see this as a new thing. I think if you boil back to where our industries come from, it's always been, when you break that down to the fundamentals, it's about a list of buyers and a list of sellers, which is data, right?
Yeah.
And our job is to provide ways of connecting them, helping them do business, as I've said several times already. So this whole thing of data is not new. It's where our business has always been based. I think obviously as technology's improved and as things have developed, the ability to do more with data is allowing us to create more experiences and do things. We had data scientists in our business in UBM probably 15, 16 years ago. I'm not going to lie, we spent a lot of time trying to understand what the hell they were talking about and what they were trying to do. But I think the whole industry, if it's honest, is our industry has realized probably way after the likes of Amazon and other companies have, is actually how important it is to do that, even though that's what we've always done. And I think we see data as being the core of what we want. But I think often when I say data, people think, what, you mean the names of the buyers and sellers, which I do mean. So often I say, no, it's about data and insight. So it's understanding what you, Dan, want, what you're interested in, how we can better help that, how we can prove that. And I know Amazon do that by then serving you up, looking at what you're looking at and then serving you up with more ads to do that. And that is one form of it. But actually for me and the philosophy in ARC is that if we can better understand what you're interested in, what your issues are, not what you think you're looking for, but what your issues are, then not only can we better serve up the leads to do that, but we can also create the environments, the services, the processes that will help you do that even better, which is basically either inventing new products, new services, or whatever. But also, everybody wants now to feel like they've got that bespoke, that unique experience. And we talk a lot about using data. Not every experience is unique, right? If you're one of 50,000 people in an exhibition hall, we're not going to create 50,000 unique experiences. But what we want to make sure, well, maybe we will, but not at the moment. What we want to make sure is that your experience is tailored to satisfy what you need to do. And that might be the same as 5,000, 10,000 other people, but we can do that. So it's really, really important. We talk a lot about data collection. We talk a lot about focus on what we're doing and leading it. But we're also investing in the systems that allow us to understand that even more. We talk a lot about data-led content, which both means looking at the performance of the content. So not just because we may think it's a feel-good story, but also then the data we can extract from what that content does, whether that's a written piece or whether that's a piece on the show or whatever. So, really trying to focus on that. I think, in open transparency, I think in certain parts of the business, we're really, really good at that. In others, we're trying to build the infrastructure and drive that. But that philosophy is key, is understanding who we're serving and how best we can drive that value, either with the content we're driving them or the experiences or whatever.
And thank you. And we obviously, you touched upon technology as well. And there's lots of discussion specifically within the event industry, how the industry and organisers can leverage AI. So I'm assuming that those conversations again are happening within ARC, and people freely admit we're still working it out. Talk to me about where you see the role of AI and tech generally.
I don't think we have an AI strategy per se at the moment. We are trying to figure it out, but we are actively looking at what that means for all functions of what we do, both the processes we do and what that means for the customers. Look, I don't like, no disrespect to all the people in our industry that call themselves event technology, but I don't like the phrase event technology per se. I accept there are some fantastic technologies out there, some of the meeting planning things, some of the platforms we have, the registration bits which fuel data and all that sort. They're hugely important to what we do. But I think what's even more important is how we're using technology generally, whether it's AI or others, to power some of the things I was just talking about. Because technology allows us to provide experiences that we couldn't do before, like this,
Sure.
like what we're doing. It allows us to present things better and do other things, but it also, more importantly, allows us to better understand and process those levels of data we were talking about, the things we wanted to do, and then turn that into active things. So like I said, I think things like meeting planners, I think, is hugely important, and the more we can develop that, because that's, again, creating a bespoke experience for people, are just as important as the likes of, marketing services technology or data warehousing and things of that nature. We have to embrace all of those and think about how we can, utilize them to drive things.
And just moving forwards then, in terms of the types of talent that you're looking to get into the business, do you think that's changed maybe over the last few years? Maybe previous roles that you're in, the types of people that you're now recruiting? Give us a flavour of the types of, I guess, skills that you're looking for when you're looking to recruit.
Yeah, I think we're looking for a whole different set of people we were looking for 5 years ago? No. Right. But your point's well made. Are there differences in what we expect in the various departments? I think, in sales, we're broadly in the same area, but we want salespeople who understand, the broader approach. I think we don't just want people who are just selling, come and sell me as many square meters as you can. We want somebody who's much more focused on understanding what the customer proposition will have, which is basically better sales technique in my view. I don't think that's fundamentally changed. It's just the emphasis on what we want to do. It has got more. But you're right, when you get into, the operations side of the business, and I don't just mean the event operations, then of course, yes, we're looking for much more broad technology understanding and people who can implement the technology either as part of the role or in terms of what they want to do. And in marketing, probably that's where, in that broad church of marketing, that's probably where the most kind of. I'm a marketing manager by trade. I started as a marketing manager on a trade show some years ago.
Yeah.
And marketing is so much more complicated now. It's much more hard you can't be a generalist marketer. So we are, like everybody, I suppose, very focused on getting skills that are technologically savvy, that understand how a tech stack works, that understand how that can manipulate the data and understand the data sets. We're very focused on people not just to run campaigns, but also can look at subscription-based models, membership models, engagement models, those type of things. Also, people who understand the role of content as well. We don't want people who are just saying, let's just roll that out. An event manager needs to understand not just, how to lay out a floor plan, but also how that floor plan interacts with the content positions we want to do, with the features we want to do, and how those in turn interact with the broader range other platforms that we have and the content strategies that have been engaged during the year. So again, to be fair, most of the younger people who are coming through the industry, I think, already know they have these, but we're very much focused on the broader church of both content, marketing and technology that we're trying to look at.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's what a lot of people are looking for as well.
Yeah. There's a pool of people sitting around somewhere waiting to be poached. Because it's interesting, lots of people I talk to and things I read, obviously there's a changing demographic of all the media and events, we own and operate. So, people that were coming to an event 20 years ago might not be coming now. And also post-pandemic, can't remember what the stat was, but lots of people of a certain age, moved on, retired, are doing other things. So I guess when we put an event together, let's just talk about events for a minute, we need to understand that different demographics now want different things. So, I look at events and there's lots of activations and immersive experience and, another word that we used a lot, experiential. So I guess you're looking for your team and the teams to come up with those sort of solutions and differences rather than, your bog standard theatres and,
100%.
booths. Yeah.
No, it's funny. People are right when they say that, but that's always been the case, right? People move through the workforce and what have you. I think, if I'm being honest, I think the events industry, the exhibition industry, even before COVID, so probably up until 5 or 6 years ago, was getting quite lazy. And I say we because I include myself in this, we were investing in, rinse and repeat technology. Actually, we were so focused on selling more square meters, maximizing the floor plan, maximizing the rebook, rather than thinking about activations, experiential, what have you. And I know we had a lot of talk about it, a lot of people talking about festivalization and what have you, all of which is very valid. But I'm not sure people were embracing it because events were making huge growth, large margins, and people were loving them. And so I see it. I don't see it so much driven by demographic change. I think it's just that some businesses, some events became lazy in looking at who they were serving. But it's also interesting if you look at events that emerged over the last 5 years, even before COVID, new events, new event formats, like Money 2020, which is still a large event, but was looking at different ways of activation. The growth of hosted buyer and one-to-one events that did all sorts of things. All of those are variations exactly on the theme that you're saying, Dan, in so much as you're trying to change the experience, you're trying to do stuff. Yes, it's still important to put a demonstration area or to put something that's flashy, and technology and the ability for us to do that has changed that. But yeah, I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and I've always said I'm not sure I'll see her being happy walking around in a suit, walking past blocks and blocks of shell scheme in the future.
Yeah,
I might be wrong on that because there might still be a way of presenting things differently, but she is going to want, she's got short attention span. She's going to want things activated and demonstrating and showing how things work. So yeah, as an industry, we've got to do even more of that. But again, to be honest, Dan, that plays back to the point I was saying before. That's why I think the content, the interaction beyond the event's also important, because I want to see what she or you or others are interested in. I can then start to try and build the experiences, because experience doesn't have to be a big show or a big party. Sometimes it's just being able to interact with someone and see how something's demonstrated. Sometimes it's just the ability to find a meeting and do stuff and talk about something. So I think we need to be open and aware of that.
How challenging is it then to implement a sort of buy and build strategy? Because I guess there's a little bit of pressure to keep the wheel turning, but you can't just go off and buy a business. And also, if you want a business and you can't find the right price, or you've done the due diligence, it's not 100% right, you have to go with your head, not your heart. How do you sort of deal with that? Can you set targets, and are they movable, and what are you looking for to?
Yeah, no, yeah, you just reminded me how tough it's been for the last couple of years. Look, there's a great phrase: you can only buy what's for sale, right? So people often say to me, "Did you have the 10 companies you want to buy, and have you gone after them?" Yes, I had a lot of things, but actually, no, we were focused, as I said earlier, on the characteristics, and that's all you can do. And yes, there's a combination of being opportunistic because people come to you and say, "Would you like this?" Versus using the network and the knowledge and the experience we have to pick up people. So it's a mixture of all of those. Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough. I said to you, we've done 6 acquisitions. I think we've probably been in more than double that in terms of processes over that time.
Yeah.
So, keeping that momentum going, keeping going through it, through the disappointment, through the positives. And to be honest, you're always making a judgment call, right? You can do a lot of due diligence, you can do a lot of things, but the art of buying a business is very much more of an art than it is a science in some ways. Much as my backers would like to tell me it's more of a science, I can't always do that. I said to you earlier, we've still got a very active pipeline. We're very interested in other businesses. We're very positive that the industry's come back to buying and looking at things. Obviously, though, that does make it a bit more competitive. Our timing was very good because we were in that post-COVID period where, for a variety of reasons, a lot of our major competitors were having to just bide their time and wait. But as I said, when we got to sort of, you said to me, did we have targets? Lots of people ask me that. People say, how big do you want ARC to be?
Yeah.
And with myself and with EagleTree, we resisted trying to put a number on that because, we have because you can't tell. To get to scale, it was a wide range. The definition of scale is quite a big thing. I think we're very comfortable that we've got to that scale. I mean, we've got 300 people all over the world now as a business, having been zero 18 months ago. And we're fairly sizable in terms of our number of events, in terms of our number of brands, in terms of our opportunities we've got. I think we're now focused, yes, on buying more, but we're very much focused on buying things that fit into our existing portfolio, both in the sectors that we serve and in the regions and in what we want to do, which means we become, I'm going to say, more selective. That probably makes it sound like we weren't selective before, because we were, but our selective criteria have changed slightly. But I think the thing that people have to remember, and I know, the likes of Doug Emsley, Simon Kimball, all people who've built businesses over the time, it's easy to look from the outside and go, yeah, it's just about spending money and buying businesses. But actually, there's a lot of work to do to make that, pull that together, to bring the teams together, to bring what we're trying to do and drive value by bringing it together. So the challenge of acquisitions is tough, but actually the growing of scale and creating value is as much about that organic growth and driving those best practices and things. So I think that's the thing I'm now much more aspiring to do is have that fine balance of both things running well together, looking at how we can grow the business as it is and leverage that strategy, but at the same time bringing things in that will add to that. And yeah, we could, EagleTree are wonderful supporters. They know this industry well. They've done fantastic deals in the past with Penton. They still own ALM and North Star businesses, as well as some services businesses. So they know the industry well. And between us, we've got a very good understanding of, we could double or treble this, but, we're going to be selective of what we want to do and how we grow this. But if we don't double or treble it, that won't be a failure. We're very happy at the scale that we're at.
I just want to just ask you a couple of questions. So I guess about yourself, it's sort of 2020 or 20, coming through, we're in the pandemic, and obviously then you decide to go full throttle and sort of launch this new initiative when others might think, well, he's done 30 years, he's run businesses, time to put your feet up, maybe be a non-exec and do a bit of consultancy and focus on your charity initiatives. What continues to motivate you to undertake a not insignificant task?
My wife asks me this about every day. I think I had a lot of time to reflect on this when I stopped at Comexposium and COVID struck. And the truth is, I think it's because I love the industry. I love what we do. I talk a lot about being motivated about the way we change people's lives. I love that when you see that at an event, whether that's someone's professional life, whether they do a deal, whether they find some new personal things, whatever. We help businesses succeed. We help people fulfill their careers, and we drive that. And I really enjoy the buzz of that, whether it's on digital, whether it's live at a show, whether we're doing. But I also love the industry, and this industry is a people business. Everything we do is created by the teams that we have, because everything we do disappears. Okay, I know web pages and papers stay around forever, but events disappear once they've gone. They just go into the memory. The thing you read goes into your memory and what have you. So the magic we create is the creativity of the teams that we use, and I love that. I love helping businesses. I love trying to do stuff, and at the risk of sounding a bit, I don't know what the correct word is, sanctimonious or whatever, this industry's given me an awful lot. Like many people, I don't feel like I chose the industry. I often used to do a career talk where I say I stumbled into the industry, and so I called it my career stumble rather than my career path. And I mean that in the positive sense, because I know a lot of people say that. But I love it, and I love trying to. I'd love to just help the industry change, which does sound a bit pompous. But more importantly, I just love seeing people grow, new leaders grow, new people grow into the business. Because I also help another couple of companies in the industry, just with offering some advice, which I hope they like, I think is good. But, all of that stuff's really, really positive. Plus, I'm not sure I am ready just to stop and sit down and go on the golf course or just be a non-exec.
Yeah.
Maybe ask me that again in 5 or 6 years' time when I'm absolutely
You're committed now. In terms of sort of highlights I'm sorry to ask this, because when you ask someone about the highlights of the career, it's almost like, they're at the end of their career. And we just discussed that you're not. But if you look back...
You're writing my obituary ahead of time, are you, Dan? That's what
yeah. Or even lessons, highlights, lessons, things you've learned. Maybe you can pull out one or two if someone's listening that's sort of maybe just on their journey in this industry. What sort of things you can say to them based on your experiences?
Oh, that's a great question. Look, I think one thing I would say is make sure you remember you're enjoying it. We are an industry that works hard and doing stuff. So I often say to people when we're at events, I see everybody running around, or when we're in the middle of doing a project, so why don't you just stop for a few minutes, take a breath, and look at what you've done here. Look at where we are. Mm. And I'm saying that in the full knowledge that I didn't do that enough, but when the times that I have, it's amazing. So I think we sometimes get caught up. We're a very deadline-driven industry in all forms of what we are, which means we're constantly chasing deadlines, obviously. And I think sometimes you get stuck on that treadmill. So I would think partly from enjoyment, take that time to just step back and understand what we're doing, how we're changing the world, what thing. And then the second thing is I would also urge people to take that step back and think about what they want to do, both personally and in the role that they have. Because I always find, I forget what year it is. I'm sure you do the same. Because we're always planning events,
it's true.
3-4 years in advance. And I often have to go, what year are we in? I don't know. And I think that's symbolic of the fact that you just get stuck going forward and forward and forward. And therefore, I think the things that have been important for me that have changed my life in terms of what I was doing, growing through the business, were times when I'd love to say I did it on myself, but I wasn't. When I was made to stop, I don't mean, but stop that treadmill that we're on and just reflect on what the next decision should be. And that's really important, both strategically when you're thinking about what you're doing with your product and what you do, because it's easy just to chase the next deadline because it's there, rather than thinking about why that deadline is there and what you can do. And I think that's the same personally as well. Is this industry offers huge opportunities to grow into, so even more, like multiple more ways now than ever was there with me. And I just think, take that time to do that. Take that time to reflect. Maybe it's just me that was bad at doing that, because as I say other people who are much better, but I also see a lot of people who get hooked up on that treadmill. So take a breath, reflect. That type of thing is really the best thing I can say.
And just sort of finally, in terms of I guess your proudest achievement, and obviously you've got more left to achieve, so this might change. And outside looking, we go, maybe when Simon became chief executive of this business or that business, or it might be, or might not be. But give us a flavour of one of your sort of proudest achievements within the industry.
Again, I don't want to sound pompous. Do I was very proud when I got to CEO. I'm very proud of sort of going or stretching myself and going all over the world. I'm extremely proud of what we've done in ARC, and even though people keep telling me I should be taking my own advice of a few seconds ago and reflecting that a bit more. The things that make me most proud are the people that I've worked with that have gone on to do things way better than I have or whatever. And and whether that's small bits where they've made progression in the business and together we've grown and they've grown and done things, or whether those are people. I've got many friends who are now very senior in many different organizations and what have you. And it's just, I love that. I love the way of helping people and seeing those people develop. And those are my proudest moments when and I'm very proud of the fact that I have friends all over the world who I can talk to, who are both industry friends and have become who are industry friends who become personal friends as well. And to see how they succeeded, how they've grown, how they've fulfilled themselves and also changed the products that they've done. Those are my highlights. Yes, I've got highlights in terms of events I've ran and things I've done and initiatives we've done. But as I say, you can probably tell I'm very people focused, and I think relationships,
yeah.
given that's what we build and what we do, I think is really important to me. So I'm sorry if that sounds soppy, but that's definitely what makes me the most.
No, you spoke from the heart, and that's all we can ask for. Listen, Simon, thank you so much for your time. We wish you the best of luck for the future.
Dan, thanks for the invite, and love the show. It's really, really cool. Thanks for everything you do.